Hey everyone, it's Thursday, March 26, 2015, and it's time for another episode of One Truth Prevails. A couple episodes back in this series, I talked a lot about video game parity, and one of the main focal points for that video, one point that was really brought up when you're talking about parity between two different consoles is resolutions. The whole resolution and frame rate debacle between the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, I really want to elaborate on that one in particularly. A couple of months back, I'd say about a year or so now, there was this, I guess you can call it, online movement called Resolution Gate. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are familiar with it, where you would have a multi-platform game that was released on both PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and people started to notice some weird things between those two versions. The PlayStation 4 version would be running at 1080p, 30 FPS, whereas the Xbox One version would be running at 900p, sub HD, 720p, and in some cases some really weird resolutions of 792p. And that got a lot of people talking about resolutions, frame rates, graphical fidelity with these next generation systems. And before somebody comes in here because, well, it's the internet, you know someone's gonna comment this, yes, video game visuals, graphical fidelity, at the end of the day, does not impact the final opinion a person has on a video game. Because video games are about the gameplay. Gameplay is the number one top priority. Everything after that is only an added benefit. But in some cases, it could detract from a person's experience. So that's what we're going to talk about today with video game performance. Resolutions, frame rates, the whole 9 yards. So while I did say gameplay is very important in how someone perceives a video game, it can positively impact it or negatively impact it, the actual performance of a video game, how the game runs, what you're seeing on the screen, can hold a pretty freaking big opinion a person has on a game. Because if you have a video game that is really gorgeous, that is running at a very smooth, buttery frame rate, combine that with some amazing gameplay, stories, and visuals, then you've pretty much got a masterpiece on your hands. Whereas on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you have a game that has really washed out colors and muddy visuals and textures, is running at a horrific frame rate, and the resolution is just god-awful, that can also impact the way a person perceives a video game. So why are so many gamers focused on graphics this time around as opposed to any other generation of gaming? Let's take this back to the 7th generation of gaming, where I like to coin the term, this is really when the internet started to get focused on the video game market. Because while the internet was around in the 90s and you had people on forums and message boards talking about their preference of consoles and games and such, it was never really as apparent as it is now with the rise of smartphones, tablets, just basic internet consumption around the world. And with the 7th generation of consoles being the longest generation by far, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, while they were powerful for their day, they really were stretched pretty dang thin. Most of the games did not run at full HD resolution, and it was very rare that you would see a game that wasn't Call of Duty that ran at 60 FPS. So when gamers dropped hundreds of dollars expecting those systems to be top tier, and they weren't, you would expect that with the next generation of hardware, you would at least get the very bare minimum of things, which would be full HD, 1080p, running at anywhere from 30 to 60 frames per second. And of course, there is someone who's going to say that, well, these are consoles at the end of the day, they're not PCs. That is true. Consoles, unlike PCs, are closed off hardware. So the hardware that they put into that system from day one is what the developers are going to have to work with, and it's what you are going to be experiencing. It's a unified experience across the board. So while we already know that consoles are not like PCs where you can infinitely upgrade your hardware to whatever specifications you prefer to make games run at a particular resolution, frame rate, tress effects, Lara Croft's hair looking all beautiful, consoles have kind of gotten the short end of the stick of this generation because a lot of the games that we're seeing are not running to the very best of their abilities. No one here is expecting games to run at 4K resolution, 120 frames per second, but the bare minimum of things like 1080p, 1080p as a video resolution has existed for more than a decade now, and it's been adopted into the mainstream for quite some time now. So you would think that with these new consoles releasing in 2013, 2012 with the Wii U, that they would very easily hit 1080p without a question. And when you have these games come out that are running at sub 1080p, in addition to running at under 60 FPS, that is where a lot of people are drawing their criticisms towards the new systems, because they just feel underpowered. Which, as a person who owns multiple platforms, I game on PC, PlayStation 4, handheld consoles, I can understand that, because as a person who got into PC gaming close to half a decade ago, and I was playing games at full HD at 60 FPS, I could definitely see what the PC gamers were talking about when they prefer performance over everything, because the performance really is an added bonus. Running the game at the best resolution possible with the best frame rate possible just only adds to the experience when you don't have to deal with things like a low frame rate and screen tearing and a wonky resolution. In the year 2015, games should be running at 1080p without a question, no doubt about that. Who is responsible for these games running at these weird ass resolutions? Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag. You can throw the blame on the console manufacturers for not making the hardware beefy enough, but you can also point the finger at the developers, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who are making these games. And while it is possible, as we've seen, that games can run at 1080p, 60 FPS, or at a variable frame rate, the developers are the ones who choose to work with the hardware. Because when they have this closed off hardware, there are just certain things that they can't put on screen. Obviously, like I said, as a PC gamer, we're not expecting the greatest of things to come out of these $400 machines, but you're expecting the bare minimum to be there, especially in the year 2015. So when you have developers out here who can put games out at 1080p, 60 FPS, no problem, you have some developers who are struggling to hit 1080p at a consistent 30 frames per second. So that's why I think a lot of people are having issues and why this whole resolution gate was a thing. It's so simple nowadays to think that it's just about graphics and visuals and stuff, when people don't consider the fact that performance plays a key how people enjoy video games. And considering that you're dropping hundreds of dollars on these new systems, again, going into them not expecting the top of the line hardware, you expect the bare minimum of it. And it's sad that the bare minimum is not even being reached by these developers. And developers, like I said, they have all the power. They could give you the games that run at that resolution, but they're going to be sacrificing some things in graphical fidelity. And when you look at a lot of developers nowadays, they do prefer graphics over performance. So if they can have a game that's going to look as beautiful as possible on this closed off hardware that they can't do anything else with, then they're probably going to go that route. Because appearance is important nowadays. When you have so many games coming out that are all starting to look eerily similar, I think it's going to come down to which one looks the best that is going to draw a person's attention. They can either focus on visuals or they can focus on performance. So with visuals, they can run the game at 1080p, 30 FPS. The game is going to look the best that it ever possibly could on this piece of hardware. Or they can maximize performance. The game is running at 60 FPS. It's solid, buttery smooth, but they have to lower the visual fidelity of the game, running it at a meager 720p. So 1080p, 30 FPS, beautiful visuals, 720p, 60 FPS, better performance. What do most developers choose? I would say they go for the former, because in this case, the game is going to look the very best they can. So, what do you guys think about this whole resolution gate? What do you guys think about people focusing a lot on the graphics and the performance? You pretty much got my opinion on this situation. I'm a person who wants the developers to maximize the very best out of the hardware that they have. And while it's unfortunate that we're seeing a lot of developers not utilize the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One to their full powers, it's still early on, so we're going to definitely see some things down the road where these consoles are going to get maxed out, and hopefully we will see games running at native 1080p and 60 frames per second. But still, till that day, we've always got the PC if you want the best performance out of it. So from me to you for now, my name is NGS. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Truth Prevails. Until the next episode, I will catch you guys later. Peace.